So I sort of don't know where I am. I'm tucked into what looks like a bit of a pacey swim. Might be chub, might be Bible. Gentleman just up here, first guard, had a nice chub. Just below the railway bridge. Some of the pictures I take from years ago, this was never here. This was all open bank. You can look straight at the railway. You can't even see it there now. So I've got one with the old River Y pellet and feeder rig, big heavy feeder, and I've got a fixed block cap end feeder here with maggots. So I just get an idea whether there's dace in there or not. Because dace are probably unlikely to take the pellet, but they might take the maggot. I've got on the end 5 maggots, but it's a barbless hook, so they might come off. Might end up with 3 or 4. I might have to go to a smaller hook. I don't know how hard fish it is. Not many people do, I have to say. So I fear it's not going to be a trip down memory lane, because my memory is when the fishing was borderline tailed on. I came at the end of it in the late 1960s. But it's going to be noisy. There's helicopters going over. I think Herne Airport, I think that's the airport, Bournemouth way, is here. Trains going past. Houses all over there. And it's a weekend, which I never fish on a weekend if I can help it. But there you go. So I'll show you what I'm using. It's like a flatbed feeder there. See, it's got the weight at the bottom. Pop the cap off, fill out with maggots, and indeed, being a barbless hook, the maggots are off. So I'll have one more cast baiting up like normal, and then I'm going to go and put a very tiny piece of a micro band on there, just to hold the maggots on, a bit like I do when I'm twitching baits for pike. And the pike season is about 5 weeks away down here, 2 months probably for most people. The benefit being, you see, with the pellet feeder, I can leave that pellet on there as long as it stays on. It's unlikely to get pulled off unless there's a bite. So I've piled 4 maggots on there. I'm going to put 5 on, and really it should be dace hammering it. If there is, I can always go to a float. I can go to free line. In fact, I know I'm going to start rolling meat. I'm not really a sort of sit down type of person. I just would normally be pounding a loader. So there's a feeder. They'll drop out like that, so I've got to get in the water quick. Bit of slack over there, but pacey down here, so I'm figuring barbel might be down that way. Just bump it, won't put it down. So I'm trying to, normally I put both balls of ground bait in, but to be honest, I don't know anything about the fishery now, do I? It's years later. So there's no point in me putting a load of balls of ground bait out there, so I figure put it in with a feeder. At least that way it is on the bottom. A big cage feeder, I've got this weird black ground bait, which is supposed to be for barbel. I'm sure the chub won't turn their nose of it. I've got loads of pellets in there. Should empty out pretty well, and as you can see, the pellet, this is on a running ledger like that. It's a banded pellet on there. Hopefully I don't lose it in streamer weed. And this one I've got to keep moving it and try further and further over in that slack. There. I find it strange not getting hammered by dace bites. So I'll give it a good, I think I've got to give it a good hour or so here. I've got a good full day today. Yeah, years ago it would be find a swim, if you could get to a swim, pile the bait with the maggots in, you would fish it, and then maybe you'd wind in and you'd wander off doing something else. If there was a swim spare, somebody wanted to fish or swim, you let them fish it, you know, it keeps it baited that way. But now it's all changed. But I'm wondering, I'm sitting like this not knowing where I'm fishing, just looking at the water trying to read it, and I'm wondering maybe I should pack some of the gear out, just take lunch of meat and go rolling just lunch of meat, searching the swims out, because I'm trying to get a bite at the moment. If I could get a nice decent sized chub or two and dream a nice barbel, great. But it'd be nice to see what other fish are in here, if there's any. Used to be bream years ago, used to be some bream in it. How big are they now? Have they been eaten? Have they died and sailed down to Christchurch Harbour to be eaten by the tote? bit breezy, bit cloudy, not great for fish spotting. The water's definitely got a tinge of colour in it, not from rain. I don't know why that colour's in there. And the stones, a lot of the stones are covered with algae. If you look at some of my old colour slides, they were in August, July, August. I'm here in August, the same. It's absolutely nothing like. Not the actual bed, the river bed. So a bite would be handy. Well, the maggots are coming off on the feeder rod, so I'm going to switch and we're going to put the feeder up there and the pellet feeder down here. So maggots at the top, pellets at the bottom. Now here's what I've done, just so you can see that. Hopefully you can. I put 3 maggots and threaded them lengthways around the hook, but just there I put a little tiny tag of rubber band. Now you can go the other side of that if you're really touchy about masking up the rubber band and tip off again, but this one's got every chance of wriggling off because it's on the barbless side of the rubber band, if that makes sense. But just a tiny snip of rubber band, those maggots will stay on there now. So we do another fill. I've got about 2 pints of maggots, but I'm aiming to use some for loose feeding and see if anything I can get Dace going if he gets biteless. Now I'm going to try this one over there, back of the weed. Sometimes you get chub at the back of the weed bed there. And then switch it with this one. I just came there, I started looking over that side, took all the tackle around there, and I thought, you know, the pace is this side. Now, pellet's still on, you see, pellet's still there. Slightly dry, the ground bait, but just want it to pack in there a little bit. And these big chunky homemade feeders tend to get a lot of bait in a little time. Trying to gauge down there. There's a gap over here. Gotta pull it back, pull it back, pull it back. Drop it there. So there's a good channel down there. It's a good lunch and meat channel. Now can you see in the quiver tips there, the extra pace where I put it in the faster flows, folded the feed around more. It's past where I've put this one in the slack, it's fairly straight, and I put this one, even though it's a heavier feeder, in the faster flow, and you can see it's pulled right round. Get a narrow channel like that, you get barbel, used to 40 years ago, swinging in and out of there, intercepting bits of bait, going down. I can't get over, I used to stand here and you'd be looking at the railway bridge and look, all overgrown. So just looking upstream there, right where I'm fishing in that area, you can see there's an island in the middle. Well, trust me, I fished here many years ago, there was no island. There never was an island. There never were those bushes and trees like they are now. This was all open area. I used to fly fish for sea trout just below the bridge there. And the tree opposite in the middle, there was never there. It was one of my top chub swims. So let's walk underneath the railway bridge and you can see, to get marks there, to give you an idea of mark, these scaffold poles, so you can remember those. They were never there before. We used to fish from there. I'm walking all this overgrown bramble area, and that's looking upstream, and the trees midsection up there behind those rush beds were never there. There was nothing there. It's just bizarre how it's just got so overgrown, and it must be the same for all rivers. Well, it is. I've seen them, trust me. This is looking at it from a different angle. I will be fishing on the right hand bank on this particular day, so I'm looking upstream there towards the railway. Just pan down, a lot more weed. There was never a tree there overhanging, never. And you can see it's a worn spot. It's where people drop baits in. Some of these are named swims. Now look here, this is an interesting one. I'll show you later on. It's you can see the before and the after. This is the famous pipe bridge section of the river. You can see you can't get away from it. It's an absolute jungle of undergrowth there. And you need to check the old school pictures I'm going to put up, the old slides that I've scanned in later on. Also no anglers. I mean, unusual or what? So I'm moving on upstream, just trying to get you a sort of an idea so that when you see what it was like, I'm looking by the big trees, see the trees on the left, trees on the right, just going underneath it now. Early doors, I only ever remember one pipe bridge, just a second one underneath that one, which we used to climb over when it said don't climb over it, but there's a smokiness in the water. Sorry, look at some of my old slides I've got coming up. This is not, the middle of winter, obviously, patently obvious. It's in the summer, late summer, so it should be clear. It's not. If you don't know it's not clear from what it was years ago, obviously this generation, the current generation, would never know. They wouldn't know the difference. No shortage of weed there. This is walking upstream, or I've lost all track of where I am when I go there now, to be honest. Now walking along there, that's looking at a place we used to call Waters Meet. Up on the left-hand fault was the parlour swim, which you had to book separately. The right-hand section here was one of the best swims opposite Waters Meet. You can see Waters Meet and the parlour was up in there. There was one big tree on the end of that, a giant, I think it was a willow tree. We used to wade out and cast across to it, drop baits, and it loaded with chub and barbel shoals. I mean, really, really good fishing. Now you get that bulrush in the middle. It was never there. And I find on any rivers, once you start getting bulrushes growing there, big problems. This is what we just used to call the side stream. Nearly almost every year somebody would get up there. There were no rushes. We would cast where the rushes were. It was water you cast all the way up there. Normally a big dead bait up there. And there would be at least one 30-pound pike coming out of that area. A year almost, probably the same fish, who knows. Now you can't even cast up there. Cannot cast up there. The middle of the river here, we used to trot down the middle of that for bream and chub, not so much barbel, and now tons of weed. But of course, years ago, a lot of the weed was cut and manicured. People were getting with waders to clear the swims, and channels, not just rip it out, just make channels so at least the anglers could fish. This is looking upstream again, but what I notice in this particular section is there's sort of lack of flow there. So I'm going downstream. Now this big loop that you can see coming in here, where I'm pointing, that will be the bank edge. Can you see how the rushes are growing in more and more and more? They're just growing into here, encroaching. And I can't, it's hard to describe. I don't actually have a photo of this particular bay because there was never a bay there that big. But it's now growing in, and I believe that's lower water flows, slower water flows, perhaps more nutrients. And then again you get the little bulrushes growing in the middle. So I'm walking down the what we call the pile section. Again, used to be big pike in that section. It will be still odd pike there. Opposite used to be a good place fishing for sea trout, but there was no on that point there. There was just never so many trees there. And the problem with trees is, look at those islands in the middle there, were never there. It was a chub hotspot years ago. And now we just got islands forming and then clumps of trees growing on them. And I never know why they're not cleared out to what they were. And the bulrushes, well, look, it's a mat, isn't it? It's just a mat. Anybody who can get a fish in there, good luck. But looking at it, there was nothing. That was one big clear run. We used to barbel fish in the middle of those bulrushes. And this is the one to look at. You cannot get away from the boathouse. You cannot get away from the cormorant sitting there blatantly in the middle of the gravel. And yes, there's an island is sitting on with a great big tree and vegetation on. Trust me, look at the pictures later on. It was never there years ago. So I don't get why the trees aren't cut down, and a Hymac excavator comes in and puts it back to what it was. It's something I've never come to terms with. That why would you let it go like that? I'm just curious. You know. I'm not saying I know water management. There's the shot. Can you see trees everywhere? Island in the middle. That was one of the hot chub swims right there, fishing from the piles, casting out where there was no island. And you just take note of the notch in between the bridge and the garden bench there, and the concrete there, for future reference. The grass over the gravel, just take note of that for pictures I'm going to show you later. And I actually caught my first barbel right there. And that was back in late 1960s. The water, can you see the sort of, you see, if you looked at it, you say it's clear. No, I'm telling you, it's not clear. It's not as clear as it used to be years ago when I used to fish down there 40 or 50 years ago. So there is stuff in the water that's creating this lack of clarity. The grass never grew up to the edge. That's not a bad thing, actually, because, you know, the grass, it makes it look a bit more scenic. And if you look around the edge, there's not one angler, is there? Not one angler fishing I can see anywhere. And down the bottom corner again, good spot for 20-pound pike years ago, and there's a side stream used to go down there, and we used to pile the chub out of there, and I do mean numbers of chub. Not half-pounders, 3-4-pounders. And this is just another river shot. But if you look on the gravel, can you see the gravel down there? This is a sea trout area that later in the year they come up here and hold up. And I literally, on this session, 2024, I've never seen so many cormorants. I watched them ball up the sea trout there, and I expect the fishery manager was dead pleased. I watched them take, or one of these cormorants grab underwater and take a 1.5 pound sea trout. It's beyond me, really, to be honest. And then obviously all the others would spook in there and bolt. And they just paddle and swim along these cormorants. They're not bothered at all, not worried in the least. Why would they be? It's Meals on Wheels. So I don't know what to do. There's a place further up, right by the pipe bridge, a traditional place. I've been down and had a sandwich. Unlike me, never used to eat. I think I'll go up and throw around the pipe bridge, and I might try a loose feeding maggots and a stick float, see if there's anything small there. But the guy up there said when he came up this morning at the top end below the weir, there were 5 cormorants in there, and I've just photographed one on the island, so they're obviously mullowing all the small fish in here. Sad but true. I can't get over, I can't see any days, minnows, it's small chub, you know, half-pounders. You used to be round with them. It just seems like devoid. I know there's fishing, of course there's fishing, I'm not saying it's not, but not in the numbers of small to mediums that we used to get. Well, 50 years ago, obviously, Graeme, 50 years ago. But if you don't show people this, the generation now just won't realise the state it's got to, you know, on all the rivers, because they think this is the norm. They think, oh, that's nice. No, it's not. It's really seriously badly wrong. Trouble is, you can't stock them, can you? You can't really stock the rivers, and what's the point in stocking them when all the pollution's going in? Anyway, I've yet to get a bite. I think I'm going to move. Well, I've come way upstream. It's very, very windy now. I think it's about 2 fish caught I've seen. I think it's small chub, a decent chub. Very windy. Going to give it a go with a float. Try and see if there's any small fish in it at all. Just seen another cormorant eating sea trout. That must be nice for the fishery owners. I just got the catapult. It's very windy, you won't get much here. Pinging a few mags out. I think there's some small fish moving down there. And follow up with an even float. Just see what they are. Very small fish. Right, we're off. That is a roach, actually. Tell a lie. It's not a dace, little roach. So save the blank. To get some more maggots of that. I need to be closer to the edge of the weeds there. A downstream wind is never good. That looks like a foul hook one. Let's see what it is. That one is a little baby chub. Well, save the blank, but not by any stretch of the imagination, is it? Not exactly setting the world alight. I think I saw a decent fish move through there, I'm not sure. Maybe a bigger roach. I'm going to go through a bit deeper, right. I'm going to switch off guys till I find a decent fish. Oh, it's a roach, or is that? Yeah, that one's a small chub. Well, he's lucky to get away from those cormorants. The downstream wind is pretty annoying. That's about where the bites were. Now it seems like they want it really tight up against the edge of that weed. Small chub again, I think, guys. Or was that a dace? No, it's a dace. Well, although I'm doing no good fishing, guys, I've been through here before, but it's always a piece of angling history coming here. The size of these salmon, can you imagine hooking that? Unbelievable. I've seen it at 45 when we had a group over in British Columbia on the Fraser River, so I know what a big one looks like. I've had them over 30, but I've never had a 40. Look at the size of that one. Pike. I can't even read that. Huge fish. These are the old roach poles, I think. What's the name of those? Can't remember. Big perch, giant perch. Never seen a perch that big. All the tackle, all the rigs. 19, what kind of 29 or 39. Loads and loads of big salmon up there, rakes on them. And of course old centre pin reels, split cane rods. It's almost worth having a blank to come and have a look in it, to be honest. Well, I haven't had the blank, but I think I'm on the way to it. As far as bubble and chub go, you never know. Well, I had some of these plugs years ago. Remember a lot of that. I've probably still got some now. Mitchell reels, tried and tested. Salmon. There's the weighing scales. I've seen those used with a big barbel once. Huge barbel there. Oh, I don't even know what size that is. Please note this is a model. Fish everywhere except on the end of my rod and line. But I have had my time down there, so no film looking for roach. Roach air, monstrous pike down there. I mean, you could sit in here and have a chin wag of times gone past, and I dare say some people do. Right, I better get fishing. There's the enemy again. I've seen so many cormorants today. When I come back downstream, it's too windy upstream for float fishing. Used to catch chub on the float fishing cheese and let it swing round here. I mean, I'm looking here, all this, I can't tell you, it just was never there. You could look up there, there was one gravel bar, tiny gravel bar in the middle, and the water ran over the top of it. I'm going to try and find a photograph of it. There was nothing there, and now it looks like I don't know. It's like I could be in Milton Keynes or somewhere, and in a park lake. Unbelievable how that's grown up. I don't know why it's not dug out. It's beyond me. So it sort of pushes water that side, and you can see it eats the bank away there, and it's going to push away here, and it's already eaten the bank away here. So I don't know why they don't just rip it all out like it was years ago, and have the flow going straight through in one big sweep like the river used to be. That's what it used to look like. That's tiny gravel bar back there. So you imagine that there, and you wonder why I'm in shock. But it is like, what's it, 54 years later? Rivers do change. I'm going to throw the feeder out and probably go to sleep. I'm getting through the maggots. I'm not getting my just rewards. Quite a deep hole over there. I wonder if I should anchor a piece of luncheon meat. I must shoot through there and scour it out. I might actually pop back in the car and get some more. Oh, there we go. Am I on? I think I'm on. Small fish. No, I'm off. Well, bites. That'll do me. That's a start, isn't it? Goodness me, some decent dace would be nice. At least it's something that the cormorants haven't eaten. There's a air show, I think Bournemouth Way, Herne Airport, so it's going to be a bit noisy. I might have to hold this. And I think I need a smaller hook with 2 maggots. Got the line like this just over my fingers, over and under, normally sensitive weight, and I can obviously see the tip as well. I can pull a bit of line off if I want. So now I'm holding it, no bites. Give it a bump, put it down. I think I'm going to have to rig the other feed rod up. Probably get it out there with that ground bait, which I've got plenty of, and over here got plenty. Small dace there, lucky that he got missed by the cormorants. Well, there are dace on the bite on the big huge barbel sized piece of luncheon meat. If I turn it over, you can see those are the little bumps and bangs where they've chewed chunks out of it. So I might try a small hook and a very small piece of luncheon meat, see if they are bigger sized dace. Well, I've moved swims again, come over this side. Well, I've caught fish up there and what I call the chute down here, and I think this is just another small, oh, better dace actually. So a small dace, that's a better one. There we go, that's quite a nice one. You've got the boathouse in the background as well. Onwards and upwards, or downwards in this case. Well, hard to explain, but I'm now on my 8th or 9th move to swims. This is the last I'm going to move. The only 2 fish I've seen caught by people, or 2 swims, have been snaggy bits like this, rather than the traditional streamer weed open bits. So I'm going to fish one down there, one here, and that's it, folks. That is it for the duration. So fingers crossed I at least get 1 bite. Other than those small bits and bobs I caught, I've sort of had a blank. Can't get away from it. It's not knowing where you're going is the thing. Very, very, very few tight swims that it seems the fish seem to be in. If you don't know, you've got no chance, or little chance. There's always a chance in fishing. I put cheese, I've got some fresh cheese, extra mature stuff here. mature Greenfields cheddar. I've eaten some of it already. Under that, well not under that, I can't get under the bush with a feeder. Hoping the smell of the cheese might draw a chub out, so that's on there. And a little bit pacey water on the left. I put the luncheon meat with the feeder in there. So I'm thinking barbel on the left, chub on the right, dream on. But what I have got, which is not a dream, is what's known as a warm salad, because it's been in the car all day. But I've got a very nice salad, so I'm going to dine like a king, or die like a king, one or the other, and hopefully get a fish. I'm going to have this and fish on now until it goes dark. Well, not the greatest fishing trip in the world, but it was more a trip going down memory lane. Now, a lot of people out there won't know this guy, but his name was Fred Taylor, Fred J. Taylor, and he used to write a lot of tench stuff and really good old-fashioned fishing articles years ago, when I was a youngster. And I think it was almost sure it was Fred that said, never go back, don't go back to your old childhood haunts, you're going to be disappointed. And in that respect, it's true. But I just thought I'm going to illustrate to a lot of the next generation that what they're looking at now might seem like a pristine river, wonderful, but it's not, because I come from an era and thankfully, thank goodness, actually saw some halfway decent, good quality water, good quality fishing, and even then, let's face it, we had better weather. I'm off to do a bit of slide scanning for you guys and show you exactly what that river looked like years ago. Right, now we're going back in years. These are the scan pictures I was taking. This is years old, and I want you to look at how green the weed is, the flowers on it, not just the fact I'm there with a black moustache catching barbel like this, and you needed to catch on a good day between 5 and 10 barbel. God knows how many chub, and it's just not what it was back in the 1960s, 1970s. Now look at that one, a small one, and this is what we're missing. There's the pipe bridge. Look, no overgrown stuff in the background, is there? It's as clean as a whistle, the background, and little ones like this. Now the watch strap tells me that's at least 40 years old, that picture. So this is what we need coming through, and I think, to be honest, they're just getting eaten. And the bigger fish, there's a few big barbel, remaining. It's the numbers of fish in very, very clear water that I think is missing there. I know every river's changed, but we used to catch loads like this, trotting on a float, holding a piece of luncheon meat back or a bunch of maggots, wading and fishing. Because now you can't do so much float fishing because there's so much weed in there. And this is an old one of a dead barbel I photographed that somebody put back too quickly because they gas up. And we used to peg them out to hold them down to keep them so they could get oxygen over their gills to recover. So you need to look after them. Look at the weed there. That was 36 years ago. Would this be a pointer as to when nutrients and stuff were going in the rivers? No. Did I show you earlier? Yes, look, this year, or last year as it is now as I edit the film, 2024, there's all the brambles on the scaffold poles. Now watch. Oh gosh, look on the left of the picture, you can just make out the scaffold poles. There isn't a thing growing there. That shows you how fast that's come up. And these are old slides because you've got the black pillars on the edge. There's a shot from the other side of the bank. And when we fished there years ago, you could fly fish for chub there. There were no scaffold poles. It was a good swim. So there it is again. You see all the overgrown there. I don't know why it's not cut down. It's beyond me. I don't know. And there, right at the end of there, look, 35 years ago, Nigel there is fishing virtually in the brambles, if that makes sense. And you can see the different. Look on the right. There's no trees. There is no trees in the river. Look at the clarity of the gravel. and all the flowers on the streamer weed there. We would go spotting fish, to be honest, there. I think the best catch I had, now there's that shot from previously. This is where I'm fishing, look, on this particular day I'm making this film. There's the railway bridge in the background, you can see that, can't you? All the trees and undergrowth here on the right you can see. And watch the next shot. 31 years previously. I know it's a bit sketchy, my mate Adrian in his outfit there, but it's peak summer. No trees, no bushes, just a straight run looking for fish between the streamer weed. And that's just literally downstream of where he was fishing. This is an extremely old picture up in the top whirlpool, no date on a slide mount. The guy waiting with the net, I think, was Bob Stewart, who's an old-time taxidermist fishing with me, and I got the fish barbel on a pin in the weir. There's the whirlpool, well, subsequently, probably the early 1970s, I guess. And the date on this slide, as you can see, that's right on the spot where I took the previous picture, which we used to fish anchor the meat down there. Can you see the holes in the weed that used to be cut down there so anglers could get in and fish and find the fish? This is all rivers now. It just seems the management it doesn't seem to be done. It should be done to the anglers. I used to get chub, barbel, loads of them, loads and loads and loads. I'll put that picture in just because. Now here you can see, this is the side stream I mentioned where we used to fish. That's totally overgrown now. I wish I'd photographed it. It's about a foot wide. There's the main river. Just look at how pristine that gravel is. It's only shallow. It's not brown. Many rivers I go on now, it's all covered in brown slime. It's just starting to go there. You can see a couple of chub moving off it that I'd spooked. This is up in the top parlour section of the river. These two guys are fighting the fish, probably a sea trout or a salmon, could be a barbel. But most people used to go up there trying to catch the salmon up there. And here's a dated one, look. 37 years ago we used to float fish in there, and you'd wade out and you'd have a swim like that, where they cut a section in the back of the stream away for the angler. You just see his float there. And because you could go spotting barbel, look, it's almost white, the gravel there. It's so clean. The fish used to drift under the weed and then come out again. And when you used them in the used to fish maggots in the maggot era, oh my God. Check the opposite bank, it says. No trees, no nothing growing. Old school slides. They can't lie. Here's what I want to tell you about. There's the pipe bridge. You can't get away from the pipe bridge, can you? Look at this. Last year, a jungle. Okay, so you can see what it's like, overgrown. I'm just telling you it was never there. If you don't believe me, here's a picture coming up. More of it. That's slightly upstream. 2024, a little bit closer to the pipe bridge there. Waiting for it, waiting for it. Oh my God, 31 years previously, a totally clear bank edge, with anglers no doubt, under both sides. And that's in the short space of 31 years. It's gone from pristine, mowed banks like that, all open, lovely clear water, stream of weed. I mean, all the rivers. Are you guys out there, any of you guys want to comment on your personal rivers? This is not my personal river, it's just a river I used to fish a lot. Summer and autumn. So you can see, just show you again, there's the pipe bridge in the background. That's what it used to look like. And trust me, before that, it was even better, you know, in the 50s and 60s. Look at the clarity of that water. I'm standing on the pipe bridge there, filming a mate just centre pin fishing. Look how clear that gravel is. Now, there's the island, down by the boathouse. You can't get away from it, can you? Cannot get away from it because you just spot the cormorant sitting there comfortably on a nice island. I just thought I'd put these in. Oh gosh, there's one of Graham's old slides. Strange, but there is no island there whatsoever. No trees, no nothing. And where the island was, the drop off was where I used to catch chub. So you can see the island and trees in the middle. I just don't get it. It was never sawn down initially. There's nothing. Look, that's an old slide. It's pillared. Black pillars on the outside of the slide. Probably 30, 40 years ago. That's how fast it can go downhill. Different older shot. And again, boathouse pool. You can't get away from it. There's the boathouse on the left. No island on the right. An even older shot, I think this one is. Absolutely nothing there. Looking downstream, this is interesting. This is this year. Down on the left there, I caught my first barbel in the late 1960s. There. Now, if you look between the bridge and the picnic bench, there's a slot out, cut out in the gravel. Can you see it? In the concrete, there's a little square cut out there. Look at the angles on the back. I think I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's about, one guy in the corner, about 9 anglers there. And there's loads downstream. Loads. So this is very, very early doors pictures. Just going to change again. Oh, there's a happy chappy with and look at the concrete slot cut out there. Strange kiss me quick hat. And you can see I went through, oh yeah, must camouflage myself. They can't see me, I must camouflage myself. I did all that phase. Now, there is the phase. I went through my very, very first barbel. It's the 1960s. Forgive the barbel which was resting gently on the net there. It's the way it was. It was my first barbel. It should have been at school. Look at the old cars. Triumph Herald, Zodiac, Zephyrs, Rover 90. I mean, that was the year I was fishing. I started fishing there. I was still at school when I was fishing then. So, and there's trees there now as well. There was nothing there. Sea trout there, float fishing maggots, feeding maggots. Look at the number of anglers on the bank. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 in a row there in the 1960s. And check out on the left. That's right. There's no island there. I just thought it was interesting for you guys to see these pictures. And there's my mum with a late 1960s roach. I caught. I said, can you get hold of that, mum? I want to do a picture. That was down below Johnson's, down at the bottom of the river. Well, there you go. Listen, I fished that river for quite a long time. And I'm generalising when I say loads of rivers that I fished years ago are just not what they were. Tell us in the comments page, what about all over England? What would be your local river? And listen, it's the older guys that they're the ones that can tell you, they can pass on that information of what they knew the rivers were like, the quality of them, the weed, the flow, the fish, the stock density that was in there. And I'm not talking about sitting there for 3 days, 3 nights with 2 boilies waiting for the rod to go round on Bernie the barbel who's 22 pounds. Not that type of fishing. They are still about the big fish. I don't bother with it now, I've got time for it. But the small, medium, average fish is just getting harder and harder, isn't it? Now listen, what happens, I feel, I've got to have a good old rant in this one, is this. You have a fish, if it lives long enough to spawn, lay eggs, the eggs are in the gravel, along comes the American signal crayfish, it eats the eggs and it eats little fry like this, called minnow size. No chance at all. They might get lucky, they might grow to this. About the size of the fish I was catching, you know those little roach and dace or whatever, they were little chub like this. They might get lucky and get to that size. Yeah, that's okay as well, isn't that? Well, not really. That's just the size to go down the throat of the cormorants who've all moved in on the rivers now. Oh, that's fine. Now, what else is there? Well, they might get 1 or 2 really big fish, right? Not much good there either, I'm afraid, because they're barely going to live long enough to spawn anyway, because along comes an otter and just eats the gills, kills them, eats the gills, a bit of the guts, and that's it. And I've seen that many times with tails that have been ripped and shredded on pike, especially where they've grabbed them from the back. So you've got that and that, those 3 things, without the pollution and sewage that's going into these places, which is killing all the ecology. Don't need me to tell you that, there's been enough in the press now. I knew about it years ago, but not as, say, back in the 1960s. I don't believe it was there. Look at the clarity on that river then. I could do no more than say, there's a picture, look how it's gone to now, and that was what it was like 40 years ago. And before that, it was even better. A sad thing with the rivers, I think I'm not even sure we got an uphill task. I don't know if we got any task, to be honest. So you just got to enjoy what you can, and fingers crossed, I can get a few river films up and catch a few fish for you. I hope you appreciate the time it takes to dig all these slides out, scan them, put them in there, find a date. Some of those slides don't have the same dates on, because I might have taken a slide out when I did a lot of magazine work. So I did 35 years of magazine and newspaper work. They take the slides out, then they'll scan them off, whatever they do. It's not even scanning then, Graeme. Put them back in, they might put them in a different, mount with a different date on it. but quite a few of those are original mounts. I've got the dates on them. So, bit of interest for you guys. It is something different. We'll catch you in the next one. And don't forget, go across to see Mike's TA Outdoors, what's going on over there. I was working with him last week, building a structure. I'm going to call it a structure. See what we're up to there. And we'll see you in the next film.